Imagine this. One morning, you wake up to find that most countries are already dependent on China. How is that possible? At first glance, China seems like just a powerful economy producing phones and clothing. But in reality, China is playing a far more sophisticated game than we might have imagined. And that's not all. Stick around to the end of this video, and you'll learn how China's hidden strategy could reshape your world and influence how we live, work, and interact with technology. Today, China is no longer just a global manufacturing hub. It has become the world's largest economy by purchasing power, surpassing the US. But their ambitions don't stop there. Imagine a country that's gradually acquiring key resources and wielding influence across the globe. Now picture this. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, many nations have already sold out to China. On the surface, this program seems beneficial. China builds roads, ports, and infrastructure. But here's the catch. China lends enormous sums of money that poorer nations can never repay. Once the debt becomes unsustainable, China takes control of strategic assets. In essence, they're buying influence and power. Take Sri Lanka as an example. Unable to repay its debt, the country had to lease an important seaport to China for 99 years. And that's not an isolated case. Dozens of countries, particularly in Africa and Asia, have already fallen into this trap. But there's another critical factor that makes countries dependent on China: technology and artificial intelligence, AI. China is investing billions into AI development and has become one of the global leaders in the field. Many nations rely on Chinese technologies for security, urban planning, and even healthcare. The problem is that dependence on Chinese AI gives China access to vast amounts of data and the ability to control key systems in other countries. AI isn't just a technology, it's a new way to exert global influence. China doesn't just want to be the top economy, they're playing the long game, creating dependencies that turn countries into economic and technological hostages. On the surface, this might look like assistance, but in reality, it's a covert form of domination. So, what's next? China is building digital networks around the world and gaining control over communications. What happens if one day they decide to shut the internet down? Have you ever wondered how the internet actually works? It seems simple. Wi-Fi, mobile networks, everything at your fingertips. But in reality, most of the world's internet traffic flows through undersea cables connecting countries. And here's the twist. China already controls more than 70% of these cables. What does that mean? If China chooses, they could literally cut the cord and disrupt internet access anywhere in the world. China understands that the future lies in technology and is aggressively building global digital networks, so-called digital Silk Roads. Under the guise of improving internet infrastructure in various countries, they gain access to critical systems. And this extends beyond just the internet. Consider this. Huawei's equipment is used in nearly every country, from Europe to Africa. Few people realize that this equipment can potentially monitor data. Governments around the world fear that China, through Huawei, could spy on millions of people. Who knows? Someone might even be watching you through your own device right now. Does the idea of China controlling your data concern you too? Here's a simple example. In Africa, many countries like Kenya and Ethiopia have adopted Huawei's equipment because it's cheaper than competitors. But there's a catch. These technologies may cost far more than just money. They jeopardize the data security of millions of people. China's digital influence, however, extends far beyond internet and mobile networks. The country is also advancing and exporting smart city technologies. Through this program, China provides surveillance systems, AI-powered cameras, and facial recognition technology to dozens of countries worldwide. For instance, Huawei's Safe City surveillance system has been deployed in over 100 cities globally, including locations in Africa and Latin America. These systems use AI cameras to track people's movements in real time. Take Serbia as an example. A Chinese surveillance system was installed in Belgrade as part of efforts to improve public safety, but many fear these systems could be used to monitor citizens and suppress protests. This raises serious concerns, as data from these cameras might end up in the hands of Chinese companies, and ultimately, the Chinese government. Another critical aspect is China's development of 5G technology. Companies like Huawei and ZTE have built extensive 5G infrastructure worldwide. The rollout of 5G opens up new levels of control, as it enables the management of smart homes, smart factories, and even entire smart cities. For instance, if a country adopts Chinese 5G technology, it gives China potential access to monitor data and, in theory, even influence the operation of security systems and critical infrastructure. In 2020, the UK, despite successfully deploying 5G networks with Huawei's help, decided to completely phase out its equipment due to security concerns. The government announced plans to replace all Huawei components by 2027, fearing that user data could fall into the hands of the Chinese government. China isn't just building internet networks. It's constructing a digital empire capable of controlling communications and data in numerous countries. Equipment that seems convenient and affordable could turn into a tool for surveillance over citizens and critical infrastructure. Think about it. If China already controls a significant portion of the internet and 5G technologies, what might they be capable of tomorrow? Share your thoughts in the comments. Did you know that China may be controlling more than you think? Not just factories and manufacturing plants, but entire countries. And they're doing it cleverly, buying up vital resources, land, and companies in ways that often go unnoticed. Take Australia, for example. The Chinese own 14% of all agricultural land there. Why is this significant? Because as food becomes increasingly valuable in the future, these lands will give China enormous leverage. China doesn't invade countries with armies. They simply acquire the key resources we all rely on. Farmers who sold their land didn't realize they were giving another nation the power to control an entire economic sector. Even more startling is that China controls over half of the world's production of rare earth metals. These metals are essential for making all our favorite gadgets: phones, computers, even military equipment. Without them, the modern economy would collapse. Imagine if China suddenly announced, "We're stopping metal exports." Entire industries worldwide would grind to a halt. We rely on these resources far more than we realize. Here's another intriguing fact. China is aggressively buying up companies worldwide. For instance, Chinese firms own significant stakes in well-known companies like Volvo and Pirelli. This means China not only controls the production of cars and tires, but can also influence technological advancements in these industries. In 2010, Chinese company Geely acquired the Swedish brand Volvo, giving China access to cutting-edge European automotive technologies. Since then, Volvo has been at the forefront of electric vehicle innovation, while China has emerged as a global leader in the EV market. Another example is the 2017 acquisition of Swiss agrochemical giant Syngenta by China's state-owned ChemChina. This was one of the largest deals in China's history, worth over $43 billion. This acquisition gave China access to advanced agricultural technologies and control over seeds, pesticides, and fertilizers. It's not just an investment, it's a strategic move that allows China to dominate global food supply chains. By purchasing vital lands and resources, China creates dependency in other countries. One day, this could backfire on us. Modern technologies, from smartphones to airplanes, rely heavily on rare earth metals, which are under China's control. This puts us in a technological trap. Now think about it. What would happen if China decided to halt the supply of these critical resources? Did you know that China is not only taking over the world economically, but is also rapidly expanding its military power? And this is happening right now, under the world's nose. While many assume that the main threats to global security lie elsewhere, China is building military bases in the South China Sea. These aren't just islands. They are man-made territories specifically designed to house military forces. Essentially, China is creating new platforms to control critical maritime routes, raising serious concerns among other nations. These artificial islands already function as fully operational military bases, equipped with missiles, aircraft, and warships. China claims these territories as its own, but other countries, such as the Philippines and Vietnam, also have competing claims over these waters. This growing tension is turning the region into a potential flashpoint for conflict. The U.S. military, along with its allies, is conducting increasingly frequent exercises in these areas because the risk of direct confrontation with China is becoming very real. This isn't just talk. Any escalation could quickly spiral into military conflict, with global repercussions. China's military strength is growing not only through base construction, but also through a sharp increase in defense spending. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, China spends approximately $250 billion annually on defense, making it the second largest military spender in the world, behind only the United States. For comparison, countries like Russia and India have much smaller military budgets, around $60 billion each. Year by year, China is increasing its defense budget, expanding its army and modernizing its weaponry. The country is heavily investing in its navy, and now possesses the largest naval force in the world by number of ships. In 2020, China had more than 350 ships and submarines, while the US had around 300. China is also strengthening its global influence by deepening military ties with other major powers, such as Russia. Joint military exercises between China and Russia have become routine, taking place in various parts of the world, from the Pacific Ocean to the Arctic. These exercises demonstrate that China is not only expanding its military capabilities, but also building strategic alliances that could shift the balance of power on the international stage. For instance, in 2021, China and Russia conducted joint naval drills in the Sea of Japan, raising concerns among the US and its Asian allies, including Japan and South Korea. These exercises were a clear show of force, highlighting the two nations' ability to coordinate military actions in key regions. China is also rapidly expanding its nuclear capabilities. In 2021, the Pentagon reported that China was constructing over 100 new silos for intercontinental ballistic missiles, signaling an aggressive push to expand its nuclear arsenal. Experts estimate that China currently possesses around 350 nuclear warheads, and this number is steadily increasing. By comparison, the US and Russia each have several thousand warheads, but China is making significant strides toward achieving nuclear parity. China's construction of military bases in the sea provides enormous strategic advantages, enabling control over key trade routes. This heightens the likelihood of military confrontations with the US and its allies, potentially leading to full-scale conflict. Now think, if war were to break out, what impact would it have on the entire world? China is already demonstrating its ability to influence the world, economically, technologically, and even militarily. But the key question remains, what's next? Could the world fall entirely under Beijing's control in the next decade? Many countries that have taken massive loans from China find themselves trapped in debt. They sign exploitative agreements without realizing they are relinquishing control over their territories and economies. China, in turn, seizes strategic assets, from ports to power plants. If this continues, these nations could lose their sovereignty and be forced to comply with China's demands. But that's not all. China is introducing its own state-backed cryptocurrency, the digital yuan. This move could disrupt the global financial system, which is currently dominated by the US dollar. If the digital yuan becomes the leading currency, many countries will become even more reliant on China's economy. Imagine a world where markets are ruled not by the dollar, but by China's digital currency. Such a shift could completely upend the global order. China is gradually subjugating weaker economies through debt agreements, stripping them of their sovereignty. The introduction of the digital yuan could destabilize the global financial system, making the world increasingly dependent on China. And the ultimate question? If the world is already moving toward economic and digital dependency on China, what lies ahead? China has already achieved significant global influence, and this trend will only accelerate over the next decade. Whether through economic pressure via loans, control over strategic assets, dominance in digital infrastructure, or advancing its interests through environmental and military projects, China is working to solidify its leadership on the global stage. Many developing countries risk falling into total dependence on China, economically, technologically, and politically. This scenario demands greater vigilance from the international community. Without effective measures to curb dependence on China, the global balance of power could dramatically shift in Beijing's favor within the next 20 years. A world where China controls key technologies, finances, and resources could become a reality much sooner than many anticipate. What can we do to avoid becoming hostages of Chinese technologies? It's time to think about how to protect our data and infrastructure. Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.